Keep the app online. We are not shutting down 16 schools over one audio file. Reconnect that bench.
The tablet is waiting to send another audio package. You are a contract device tester. You do not disconnect district equipment without approval.
My son did not press record. The tablet was closed inside his backpack. Listen.
Mom, if we lose the apartment, do I have to leave my school?
No teacher was there. No microphone symbol appeared. That happened in my kitchen.
My daughter carries the same tablet. If Noah's listened inside a closed bag, hers can listen too. How many devices run this version? 2,880. How many schools? 16.
Allison pointed at the case. One file does not prove every device is recording. It proves the app can keep an audio buffer alive after the screen locks. Miles shook his head. The documentation says microphone access ends when the message screen closes. The documentation is wrong. A video window opened on the wall. Everett Shaw, chief executive of Civic Nest Learning Systems, heard Terrence's voice and froze. Terrence Mabry filed the locked screen microphone defect before release. Allison looked from Everett to the contractor badge on Terrence's shirt. You warned them? Terrence kept one hand on the isolation case. If the microphone is on, the child has to know. At 7:51 that morning, the testing room held 4 kinds of silence. Rebecca's was anger. Miles's was calculation. Allison's was the stillness of someone counting consequences faster than she could name them. Everett's face on the wall showed the careful pause of a man deciding which truth would cost him least. Terrence broke it first. Miles, does the app show an active microphone session in your console? Miles turned back to the screen. No. Does the tablet operating system show recent microphone use? Yes, 6 minutes ago. Was the message recorder open? No. Rebecca said, then it was listening. Everett raised one hand. It may have retained a diagnostic fragment after a failed session. That is not the same as continuous recording. Terrence looked toward the phone in Rebecca's hand. How long is Noah's file? 38 seconds. Did the conversation begin before or after the zipper sound? Rebecca replayed the first 2 seconds. Cloth shifted. A key struck a ceramic bowl. The zipper closed. Then Noah spoke. Terrence said, the tablet was already inside the bag. That was not a failed message. Miles crossed his arms. We still need a controlled reproduction. Yes. Allison studied Terrence. And until then, block new audio uploads, leave text, attendance, and transportation services alone. Everett leaned closer to his camera. You cannot block a service endpoint without knowing what else shares it. Then tell us. Civic Nest architecture is proprietary. Rebecca laughed once, without humor. My kitchen is not proprietary. Allison removed her hand from Rebecca's phone. Miles, can you isolate audio without taking down bus notices? I need the endpoint map. Everett, I can provide a limited service diagram under emergency confidentiality. Terrence said, do not send it to me. Send it to Miles and Mara. Allison glanced toward him. Why not you? I do not have district authorization to see student data paths. That answer did not earn him trust. It simply kept him from losing more of it. Mara Atwood arrived at 7:58, carrying a records case, 2 blank evidence seals, and the expression of a woman who had already been told 3 incomplete versions of the same emergency. She was Haven Ridge's privacy and student records officer. She asked no one for a summary. She went straight to Rebecca. Did you alter the original file? No. Did you download it from the district? It came in the data export I requested for my son. Who has heard it? Me, my sister, the principal, and everyone in this room. Mara looked at the wall display. Was the Civic Nest call active when it played? Everett answered. Yes. Mara wrote his name and the time on an evidence sheet. No one plays it again without Rebecca's permission. Miles, preserve the tablet state. Terrence, step away from the case. Terrence did. Mara sealed the ports and handed the case to Miles. Now tell me why the man who warned your company is testing repaired tablets in our basement. Everett answered before Terrence could. His contract ended under a continuation agreement. Terrence's hand tightened around the edge of his notebook. A folded hospital benefits notice showed between 2 pages before he pushed it out of sight. Mara noticed, but she kept her attention on Everett. What continued? Insurance and separation terms. They are not relevant to the device state. Terrence said, I filed a defect. They reclassified it. As what? Mara asked. Everett said, as a safety research function that had not yet been enabled for general deployment. Miles turned from the console. The current package includes a privileged device management service. The visible recorder icon closes with the message screen, but the service can keep the microphone process alive. The operating system writes that used to an administrator privacy log. The student sees no icon and hears no chime. Allison said, enabled or not? We need to examine configuration, Everett replied. That means you do not know. It means a district setting may differ from our standard configuration. Terrence said, search for pulse mode, background sampling, or protective context. They avoided the word recording in the review. Everett stared at him. Mara turned to Miles. Search configuration names. Do not open audio content. Miles typed. Near the bottom of the service list was Safety Pulse Context Buffer. Allison read the status aloud. Active. 16 schools. The word active changed the way everyone looked at Terrence. He had not returned to Haven Ridge through Civic Nest. After Danielle's death, a regional repair contractor had hired him to test district tablets that came back from cracked screens, weak batteries, and failed cameras. The contractor knew he had once worked in software quality. It did not know the reason his Civic Nest contract ended. His Haven Ridge badge opened the basement receiving door, the repair cage, and the testing room. It opened nothing upstairs. He spent most days checking whether a repaired microphone could capture a teacher from 6 feet away, not whether the application using it had permission to listen. Allison asked, Did you ever report this to Haven Ridge? Terrence looked at Everett's image before answering. Not with proof the district could act on. I had my old report, but not the deployed configuration, not a district device, and not the right to inspect student traffic. Rebecca said, You knew enough to be afraid. Yes, and my son carried it home anyway. Terrence did not defend himself. Mara wrote another time in her log. The defect was now confirmed as a company history, but Terrence's silence had become a second unanswered question. At 8:20, Miles attempted the official solution first. He changed Noah's account password, revoked every active login token, reset the tablet, and enrolled it under a test student with no message history. Mara watched every step. Rebecca stood beside the door with both hands around a paper cup she had forgotten to drink from. Terrence stayed behind a yellow line painted around the testing bench. Miles held up the clean tablet. New account, new password, no saved sessions. Lock the screen, Terrence said. Miles did. Put it in the padded drawer. Why? So the microphone cannot hear us clearly unless it is still active. Miles placed the tablet in the drawer and shut it. Mara started a timer. Allison read from a prepared card. The red folder is under the north window. No one spoke for 20 seconds. Miles opened the drawer. The screen remained black. No recording indicator, he said. Disconnect wireless, Terrence said. Miles disabled the network. Wait 10 seconds. Reconnect. The console showed a small outbound packet. Miles frowned. Mara said, What left the device? Encrypted data. 412 kilobytes. Everett spoke from the wall. That size could be a crash log. Terrence asked, Does a crash log need microphone permission? Miles opened the operating system record. The audio service was active for 32 seconds. Can you play the content without sending it anywhere? Allison asked. Mara answered, Not until we create a test account consent record. Terrence nodded toward the prepared card. Use a district-owned test device and a synthetic voice. Nothing from a child. Miles created the record. He routed the encrypted packet into an offline analysis machine. A waveform appeared. Then the speaker played Allison's sentence from inside the closed drawer. The red folder is under the north window. The room heard it clearly. Miles stopped playback. Rebecca turned to Everett's face on the wall. How many kitchens did your app put in a file? Everett did not answer. The failed password reset changed the crisis. It was no longer about a stolen account. The app itself had listened. The next question was how often. At 8:38, Mara approved a controlled reproduction using a district test device, a synthetic voice, and no student identifiers. Terrence wrote the sequence in plain language. Record one sentence, close the recorder, lock the screen, speak a second sentence, disconnect the network, reconnect it, and inspect any new packet. Miles performed the steps. After the screen locked, a computer voice said, "The blue chair is beside the door." When the network returned, a new packet appeared. Mara allowed Miles to open metadata only. Duration, 26 seconds. Source, safety pulse. Miles played the final 5 seconds through the offline analysis machine. The blue chair is beside the door. Mara logged the result. Background audio collected on a clean account after the recorder closed. Everett called it a temporary buffer, not a recording. Rebecca said, "It kept a sentence nobody sent. Call it whatever you want." Allison ended the argument. The evidence moved from a closed backpack to your server without a child touching the microphone. It is moving fast enough. While the testing room argued over words, the district day continued around them. Elementary offices used ClassCove to verify who could collect a child after an early dismissal. Transportation clerks watched route changes caused by a water main break. A school nurse waited for a parent acknowledgement before releasing medication instructions. Teachers sent written updates to families who could not answer calls at work. Allison received 3 messages in less than a minute. One principal wanted permission to collect every tablet. Another wanted to turn off wireless access across an entire school. A third had already told teachers to place devices in locked cabinets. She stopped all 3 actions. "No school improvises alone," she said. "Do not destroy evidence. Do not disconnect attendance. Do not ask staff to open student files. Wait for one district order." Rebecca heard the command and folded her arms. "You sound very calm. I am trying to keep one hidden microphone from becoming 6 different emergencies." Terrence understood the problem. The dangerous part of a district system was not only what it did, it was how quickly hundreds of well-meaning adults could react in different ways when no one trusted it. At 9:05, Allison activated the District Emergency Incident Authority. Technology, legal, counseling, and school operations became separate work groups under one incident record so they could act at the same time instead of waiting for one office to finish. Her first order was containment, not repair. Miles cut only the network address that received safety pulse audio. The block prevented new files from leaving Haven Ridge, but it did not remove microphone permission, disable the service token, or erase packets already waiting on offline tablets. He tested attendance on 20 devices. He sent a teacher text. He opened transportation notices. Those services still worked. Then he ran the locked screen test again. The tablet built a local audio packet. The network block refused it. "What happens when this device reconnects somewhere else?" Mara asked. Terrence answered, "It will try again, unless the local queue is erased before the app gets service access." Miles looked at Everett. "Can district management wipe that queue?" "With the correct command. Send it." Everett hesitated. Allison said, "Now." The command format arrived 3 minutes later. By 9:32, Miles had confirmed that 16 schools used the same configuration. 7,920 student accounts touched the platform. 2,880 district tablets carried the affected release. Allison kept ClassCove available for text, attendance, and transportation while the audio address remained blocked. She gave each workgroup a deadline and required updates every 20 minutes. Rebecca accused her of delaying public notice. "Parents should know now." "They will," Allison said. "But I will not send a message that makes families throw devices away before Mara preserves the logs and Miles contains the uploads. You have 1 hour before I call every parent I know." "Then we have 1 hour." At 10:04, Everett stopped denying that Safety Pulse collected background sound. He asked to speak off the record. Mara refused. This meeting stays in the incident file. Everett described a pilot student who had spoken about self-harm near an open help request. Context audio allowed staff to understand the danger and intervene. Caroline Webb, a district counselor, asked, "How many children were helped by sound they did not choose to send? I do not have the final count in front of me." "Then give us the working count." Everett shifted to procedure. "Most clips are screened by automation. Only high-risk alerts reach trained reviewers." Mara asked, "Names. Who could hear them?" "Authorized Civic Nest personnel and designated district staff." "Which district staff?" Everett looked beyond his camera. "The roster is being confirmed." Rebecca said, "You can name my child, but you cannot name the adults who heard him." Terrence spoke only when Everett called the missing notice an interface concern. "My report required a visible state, a chime, and a real choice." Everett answered, "The safety value outweighed that concern." Terrence said, "A system that treats privacy as the price of safety teaches children that adults may break trust whenever they call it protection." Rebecca leaned toward the screen. "My kitchen is not proprietary." Everett moved to a new defense. He said Haven Ridge might have enabled a district configuration that Civic Nest did not recommend. Miles opened the signed deployment sheet. Safety Pulse arrived enabled in the vendor profile. The district did not turn it on. Everett stopped blaming the configuration. Caroline returned to the one question he had avoided. How many background alerts led to a verified intervention? "The data requires review." Terrence watched him protect the whole system with one saved child and no count of the private lives it had entered. Safety Pulse had once helped someone. That truth made the choice harder. Mara divided the information they could inspect from the information they had no right to hear. File counts were allowed. Device identifiers were allowed. Timestamps, risk labels, and access events could be examined without opening the sound. Content remained sealed unless a parent consented or a specific safety basis justified a limited review. Miles found service accounts that had opened clips automatically. He also found human reviewer accounts, but the names arrived as employee numbers rather than people. "Can Civic Nest map these numbers to staff?" Mara asked. Everett said the list would require legal review. "You mapped a device to NOAA in one export," she replied. "Map your reviewers to their own access." Terrence watched Mara build the boundary he should have built months earlier. The investigation did not need to hear children in order to prove that adults had been able to hear them. A small status light blinked on the isolation case holding Noah's tablet. Terrence remembered how often a device could look harmless while a process continued underneath. He wondered how many times he had used the same excuse about himself. At 10:36, Mara and Miles produced the first reliable scope report without opening another recording. 3,680 audio clips had reached Civic Nest storage during the previous 28 days. 612 carried enough linked metadata to identify a student directly. The rest still contained device codes, schools, timestamps, and recent class sessions. Terrence wrote the first number on his pad and stopped. It no longer looked like storage. It looked like thousands of rooms in which children had assumed no one from school was listening. Rebecca called home. Noah answered. "Did they hear the apartment part?" "A few adults did." "Can you make them erase it?" "I'm going to try." "Why did the tablet keep us?" Rebecca looked through the glass at Mara sealing the evidence cabinet. "Because the system did not know the difference between danger and private life. Do not play it at the meeting." "I will not." When Rebecca returned, deletion was no longer an abstract demand. It was a promise to her son that his fear would not become school property. Mara read the numbers aloud when the parent meeting began at 11:30. Parents filled the board chamber and the live stream. Many had covered school tablet microphones with tape or folded paper. Allison said the district had confirmed locked screen collection, blocked new audio uploads, and kept text, attendance, and transportation operating. She also said the district did not yet know how many children had been recorded. The room answered with overlapping questions. A father near the aisle kept repeating one practical question. "Who do I call? Give me one number." Allison posted a district hotline and promised device-specific notices rather than a general press release. Rebecca asked, "Who listened to Noah?" Mara answered with limits. 4 people in the district room had heard the clip after Rebecca played it. Civic Nest had not yet provided a complete reviewer list. I will give you the list when it is complete, Mara said. I will not pretend an incomplete answer is final. Caroline reminded the room that some students relied on voice input and would need temporary human support. Removing hidden audio still required a replacement for visible, chosen voice tools. Mara kept her language narrow. We have no evidence that every student was recorded. We do have evidence that private audio could be captured without a visible signal. Graham Stokes, independent counsel, warned that immediate deletion could erase access history or a genuine danger report. Keeping everything without limits would extend the harm. The district needed a separation process. Everett challenged the synthetic reproduction. A computer voice in a test room does not prove how the classifier behaves during normal student use. Mara said, "We will not test on an unaware child." A consenting student could read one neutral sentence, Everett replied. Then he looked at Terrence. Your continuation agreement does not authorize you to disclose internal behavior as settled fact. Lena looked up from the back row. She had seen the words continuation agreement on envelopes kept with her mother's treatment bills. Terrence did not look toward her. A board member asked whether a normal student account would settle the dispute. Terrence should have said the synthetic test had already proved the collection. Instead, he saw the room beginning to doubt him again. Lena sat with her journalism teacher. Blue tape covered the microphone hole on her tablet. Terrence walked to her during a short recess. Everett says the test is artificial. Lena looked toward the technical table. That is his problem. A normal student account would remove the argument. One sentence. Then the screen locks. Only that sentence? Terrence knew the app could keep several seconds before and after a trigger. He also knew the diagnostic classifier displayed the highest confidence segment first, not necessarily the approved phrase. He did not explain either fact. We will use one sentence, he said. Lena studied him, then peeled away the tape. Her journalism teacher, Ms. Dorsey, asked whether she wanted 5 minutes away from the room. Lena shook her head. If I leave, they will talk about students without one here. Terrence heard the answer as courage. He did not hear the warning inside it. Lena was participating because she wanted students represented, not because she trusted every choice he would make. Before they returned to the chamber, she stopped him near the door. Dad, look at me. He did. One sentence, not a demonstration about our family, not a story about Mom. One sentence. The promise was precise enough to sound safe and incomplete enough to protect what he wanted to do. At 12:08, Miles moved her tablet onto an isolated district test network. Its only destination was a diagnostic receiver inside the building. The receiver used a copied Civic Nest classifier, but had no route to the production service or to the internet. The network block protecting the other 2,880 devices remained in place. Mara wrote the consent herself. One prepared sentence may be collected and played. Nothing outside that sentence may be heard or displayed. Lena read the form twice before signing. For this demonstration only, Mara allowed Terrence to operate the isolated receiver. It contained one consented test account and no production student records. Lena opened a voice message to her journalism teacher. The student newspaper meeting begins after lunch. She stopped the message and locked the screen. The Class Cove recorder icon disappeared. The privileged management service continued in the background, visible only in the administrator privacy log. Her teacher leaned close. Are you all right? Lena kept her voice low. He gets like this when somebody says he was wrong. Proving it becomes more important than everything else. A packet reached the isolated receiver. The classifier marked family distress with a confidence of 74%. It placed the highest confidence segment at the top of the panel. Mara saw the time code. That is outside the consent window. Do not open it, Everett said. If the system selected ordinary speech, the room should hear that. Terrence looked at the highlighted segment. He knew it was not Lena's prepared sentence. He also knew it proved the entire case in a way no diagram could. The extra capture is the proof, he said. Then he pressed preview. Lena's voice entered the public speakers and the active live stream. Proving it becomes more important than everything else. Miles killed the receiver output. The room went still. Lena stared at her father. I said one sentence. Terrence released the mouse. I knew the buffer could take more. I thought the test needed to show it. Mara's voice was flat. You never told me the classifier could rank audio outside the consent window. Lena stepped back from the table. You did what they did. You decided your reason was enough. Lena, I was trying to prove the system was taking things it had no right to take. And then you played mine. Terrence had no technical answer for that. Lena pressed the blue tape over the microphone again. Do not follow me. She left with her teacher. The door closed behind them. Parents who had spent the morning demanding answers now avoided looking at Terrence. The board chair muted the live stream, but the recording of the public meeting had already been copied by news stations and parent groups. Miles stared at the diagnostic receiver. I clicked nothing, he said quietly. Terrence looked at his own hand on the mouse. I know. Mara removed the test network cable, sealed the receiver controls, and wrote Terrence's name beside the playback event. Everett tried to use the silence. The result confirms that the classifier recognized emotional distress. Rebecca turned toward the wall screen. Stop talking about her like she is a successful test. Everett closed his mouth. Allison ordered the public recording preserved without replay. She also directed communications staff not to quote Lena's sentence in district notices. Those actions could not take the words back, but they prevented the district from repeating the harm for convenience. Terrence watched Mara build protections around the damage he had caused. For the first time that day, he was not the person with the next instruction. Rebecca did not offer Terrence a verdict. She only said, let her leave. At 12:31, the board chair suspended the meeting. Terrence returned to the basement testing room. He sat behind the yellow line and tried to tell himself that the public had finally heard what Safety Pulse did. The thought lasted less than a minute. Mara arrived with an evidence box. Everything from Civic Nest, reports, videos, messages, contracts, notes. The agreement forbids disclosure. Graham will decide what it covers. They will sue me. That may happen. Terrence looked toward the door Lena had used. The proof mattered. Mara set the box down. You are still arguing with the wrong person. You had consent for one sentence. You hid the buffer risk, then played the part you knew was outside it. He did not answer. You may explain design from now on, Mara continued. You do not choose what anyone hears. Terrence stared at the sealed receiver. If the microphone is on, the child has to know. Mara said, you knew. Lena did not. Terrence almost objected that no one else in the building understood the classifier timing as well as he did. The sentence reached his throat and stopped there. He had used expertise as if it were permission. Mara pulled a chair to the opposite side of the bench. I need the warning package because it tells us what Civic Nest knew. I do not need you to become the center of the investigation. Can you understand the difference? Yes. Do you? Terrence looked at the sealed receiver. Not as well as I thought. Mara waited until he opened the backpack himself. Terrence opened his backpack. The warning package fit on one encrypted drive and a thin stack of paper. He placed both in the box, then added the continuation agreement. At 1:06, Graham reviewed the transfer while Mara recorded it. The files showed that Terrence had reported the locked screen defect 10 months before Haven Ridge adopted the release. He had refused approval without a visible indicator and explicit consent. A Civic Nest panel had changed the issue from release blocking to accepted safety behavior. The last document was the agreement Everett had mentioned that morning. Mara read the date. This began the week your contract ended. Danielle was in her 4th treatment cycle, Terrence said. The insurance would have ended with his contract. Civic Nest offered 8 months of continued coverage if he signed confidentiality and released employment claims. Graham asked Galvide why he signed. Her next infusion was Tuesday. The hospital wanted proof of coverage by Friday. I signed Thursday. The benefits notice Mara had seen that morning was a copy of the same approval. Terrence had carried it for years because it proved Danielle's treatment had not stopped in the week he lost the contract. It also proved what the continuation agreement had purchased from him. Lena had been 13 when the last Civic Nest insurance card arrived. She knew her father had lost a job while Danielle was sick. She did not know that the company paying the hospital bills was also paying for his silence. Graham asked whether Terrence had sought outside advice before signing. The hospital financial office gave me 2 days. The attorney I called wanted a retainer I did not have. I chose the treatment. Would Danielle have wanted you to stay silent? Mara asked. Terrence's face tightened. Do not make her answer for me. It was the first impatient thing he had said since Lena left. Mara accepted the correction. Then answer for yourself. Terrence looked at the dates on the agreement. I chose 8 months of coverage. After that, I kept choosing silence because the first choice was already behind me. The room did not forgive him. Graham only marked the agreement as evidence of company knowledge and potential pressure. Mara recorded the explanation without calling it justification. And after she died, Terrence looked at the closed evidence box. I was afraid of the lawsuit. Then I was ashamed I had waited. I kept moving the day I would speak. Mara said, "That explains the silence. It does not excuse today." I know. The disclosure did not repair Lena's trust or decide the fate of 3,680 recordings. It only made the history complete. At 1:28, Mara returned to the chamber with the warning package. She kept the audio controls away from Terrence. Everett objected that the documents were confidential. Graham said, "Argue that later. Explain why the review panel removed the chime." Mara read the internal line aloud. "Visible or audible notice may suppress spontaneous risk language." Rebecca stared at Everett's image. "You thought children might stop talking if they knew." Everett no longer denied collection. He defended secrecy as necessary to the safety benefit. At 1:50, he announced that CivicNest's raw audio store would begin its scheduled purge at 3. He called the purge a privacy protection. Mara asked whether it would also erase access logs and detailed risk labels. "Some linked records age out with the content," Everett said. Graham ordered preservation before the purge. Everett said district officials did not control the CivicNest cloud environment. Allison answered, "Your company collected the data through our devices. Preserve it or explain the refusal at the emergency board session." At 2:05, CivicNest placed the store under a read-only hold. Graham required a hash manifest of every file, access event, risk label, and queued deletion. No one downloaded the full collection. Only clips with an existing, specific safety basis could enter a limited review. The hold bought time, not a final answer. CivicNest Council and Haven Ridge Council exchanged written limits, while Mara kept every version in the incident file. Caroline arranged support for families receiving notice. School operations prepared printed rosters in case digital services failed. Accessibility staff identified students who relied on voice input. The emergency authority let those groups work in parallel, but each decision remained documented. Miles's team built the permanent controls that the board would later have to authorize district-wide. At 2:24, they tested those controls on 40 isolated devices. The first control revoked the safety pulse service tokens, so the feature could no longer authenticate. The second removed microphone permission, so Class Cove could not create a new audio packet. The third erased any local queue. The fourth placed any device that failed to install the policy on a server-side deny list. The network block from 9:05 remained in place as containment while the pilot ran. Terrence read the short checklist from behind the yellow line. "Locked screen." "Locked," Miles said. "Reconnect." "Connected." "Audio queue." 0. "Attendance and transportation." "Working." The pilot proved that the district could remove hidden audio without taking down the functions families needed. It did not prove the rollout would be easy. Several tablets had not checked in for days. Some were at homes without reliable internet. Others were powered off in classroom carts. One device was locked in a police evidence room after a vandalism case. The permanent policy could not reach any of them until they connected. Miles solved that problem on the server side. An affected tablet that missed the policy would be denied attendance, messaging, and transportation service when it next appeared. The denial page would explain that an emergency privacy update had to install first. Only after the device reported 0 microphone permission and an empty audio queue would district access return. Terrence reviewed the logic but did not approve it. Approval belonged to Miles, Mara, and the board. Mara entered carrying 1 page. "We have 1 high-risk clip from Willow Creek Elementary." Terrence stayed outside the evidence room. Mara summarized the metadata. Evan Briggs' tablet had remained under a conference table after counseling. The clip contained adult voices and the terms fire, children, inspection, and do not report. Graham authorized a review by Mara, Caroline, and a fire marshal liaison. No one else heard the file. Caroline placed Evan's name on a separate sheet and covered it before the door opened. The clip had entered the case because of the risk labels, but the adults in the recorded meeting, not Evan, were the subject of the safety concern. Terrence could hear no audio through the evidence room walls. He watched the timer instead. Each minute felt different from the minutes spent waiting for a test packet. This time, he wanted the system to be wrong. If the clip was harmless, thousands of families had been violated for nothing. If it was real, Everett would gain the strongest argument he had offered all day. 8 minutes later, Mara called Allison. The speakers discuss a dead-buffed alarm loop in the West Wing, a sprinkler valve left closed after repairs, and inspection entries completed after the dates passed. After school students are still inside, a science fair opens at 5:30. Everett used the finding immediately. That clip may have protected hundreds of families. Terrence gripped the edge of the desk. A hidden microphone had exposed a real danger at Willow Creek, and his daughter's private words in the same afternoon. "Use the warning to clear the building," he said. "Do not use it to justify every other recording." Under the emergency authority activated that morning, Allison sent the operations group to Willow Creek while the legal and technology groups continued their work. She canceled the science fair, moved the remaining students from the West Wing, and requested an independent fire inspection. The inspectors did not rely on the recording. They tested the building. Allison required the inspection before she accused any employee publicly. Staff moved children using printed rosters and direct calls to guardians. No automated voice feature took part in the evacuation. The principal was told only that a specific safety report required immediate verification. The facility's director was not allowed to supervise the test or alter the panel before inspectors arrived. 3 classrooms received no alarm. The hallway strobes failed. In the mechanical room, the sprinkler valve was still locked closed. The fire watch log carried repeated handwriting across entries assigned to different employees. The fire marshal closed the West Wing. Allison placed the responsible facilities officials on leave and opened a separate investigation into the false records. The clip had revealed a dangerous secret. Physical inspection proved it. Neither fact made the secret collection acceptable. Terrence read the inspection message twice. Relief came first because the children were out. Shame followed because part of him had hoped the clip would be meaningless and make his argument easier. Mara found him looking at the sealed evidence door. "You do not have to make the facts cleaner than they are," she said. "The system found something real." Yes, Lena was real too. Noah was real. Yes, there was no sentence that made those truths cancel each other. At 3:34, the Haven Ridge Board convened its emergency session. Allison opened by invoking the emergency authority she had used throughout the day. She explained that technology containment, legal preservation, counseling review, and school operations had worked at the same time under separate leads. The board was not being asked to approve every investigation result in one afternoon. It was being asked to decide what could continue before the next school day. That distinction mattered. Criminal questions, contract claims, personnel discipline, and final destruction orders would take longer. The immediate vote concerned microphone access, preservation boundaries, and the services families needed that evening. Graham reduced the data question to 3 choices: delete everything and risk destroying evidence, preserve everything and continue controlling private family speech, or freeze the logs, isolate only clips already tied to a specific safety alert, and destroy unrelated audio after notice and a short challenge period. Rebecca supported the third option, only after Graham confirmed that parents would receive an access record and written destruction notice. A board member asked what happened if a parent demanded immediate deletion of a harmless clip before the challenge period ended. Graham answered that the audio would remain encrypted and unavailable, while its access history stayed preserved. The short delay protected the family's ability to prove who had opened it. Rebecca did not like the delay. "I want Noah's voice gone." "I know," Graham said. "I also want you to know who heard it before it disappears." She looked down at the written option, then nodded once. It was not agreement with the collection. It was consent to a limited process after being told what the process cost. Miles explained the device decision in practical terms. The temporary network block stops uploads today. The permanent policy removes microphone permission and service credentials. The server deny list keeps any tablet that misses the update from reaching district services until it installs the policy. Text, attendance, and transportation remain available. Voice tools stop. Everett changed tactics again. He used Willow Creek to demand that Civic Nest retain access to every high-risk clip. Caroline shook her head. Your staff can explain the model. They do not hear children while your conduct is under review. Everett turned to Allison. If the independent team misses the next threat, the district owns that decision. Allison looked at the Willow Creek inspection report, then at the photograph of blue tape covering a student's microphone. Terrence watched her reach the choice he had failed to make with Lena. A good reason did not erase the need to ask. He had spent years believing that if he could prove the defect clearly enough, the moral decision would become automatic. Willow Creek proved the opposite. Better evidence made the decision harder because it strengthened both sides. Allison did not ask Terrence what she should choose. She asked Miles whether the district could operate without hidden audio, Caroline whether children would still have visible ways to request help, and Mara whether the proposed review could keep unrelated speech sealed. Each answered only for their own responsibility. That was what Terrence had failed to do at the diagnostic receiver. Yes, Allison said. The district will own the decision. We will not hide it inside a microphone. She signed the emergency directive. The board approved a narrow evidence review, an independent destruction schedule, and the removal of Class Cove microphone access. The vote was divided, but the motion passed. At 4:12, Miles moved from the 40-device pilot to the district rollout. The command was now the second version of the 9:05 block. The morning block had been a temporary wall at the district network. The rollout changed what the application and device were allowed to do wherever the tablet connected. Miles projected a 4-column status board. Policy installed. Token revoked. Queue empty. Service allowed. A device remained red until all 4 conditions were satisfied. He gave 4 orders. Publish the microphone removal policy. Published. Revoke the service tokens. Revoked. Erase local queues. Command active. Activate the deny list for every device that misses check-in. Active. The network block remained until verification finished. Miles tested one tablet that had been offline before the rollout. When it tried to reconnect, the server refused district service, installed the new policy, erased the queue, and then allowed text and attendance access. No audio packet appeared. A second test used a tablet with an audio packet deliberately left in its local queue. The deny rule stopped the device before Class Cove reached any district service. The update erased the packet while the device remained isolated. Only then did the status board turn green. Miles did not repeat the entire sequence for the chamber. He showed the result, the command record, and the 0Q report. That was enough. At 5:06, 1,960 tablets had installed the policy. The remaining 920 had not checked in and were held on the server side deny list. Together they accounted for all 2,880 affected devices. No tablet with the old microphone permission could reach district services. At Willow Creek, the West Wing remained closed. Allison told families that an independent inspection had confirmed a failed alarm loop, a closed sprinkler valve, and false maintenance entries. She did not identify Evan or describe the recording. One parent asked how the district learned of the danger. Allison answered, "The information was collected without proper notice. We used it to verify the danger, and we are ending the collection method." By 5:35, attendance, transportation notices, emergency text alerts, and written teacher messages were stable. Voice functions remained disabled. Mara sealed the Willow Creek clip and 6 other alerts for independent review. No one had yet decided whether the other 6 contained genuine danger. Unrelated audio remained encrypted under the destruction order, beyond Civic Nest reviewer access. Rebecca received written confirmation that Noah's clip was not linked to a safety alert and would be destroyed after the challenge period. Now, when the access record listed every person and service account that had opened it, She passed Terrence in the hallway. Your warning was right, she said. That did not make what I did to Lena right. No, she kept walking. The board created a temporary review group with parents, counselors, accessibility staff, teachers, and students. Civic Nest could provide technical documentation, but could not hear student content. Graham referred the warning package and the Willow Creek records to independent investigators. Terrence signed a plain statement. He wrote that he knew the test might capture more than Lena's sentence and played the extra segment anyway. At 7:18, he unlocked the door to their house. Lena's tablet sat on the kitchen table with blue tape over the microphone. Her bedroom door was closed. Terrence left his statement beside the device and waited. He did not write a second note. The first one already belonged to the investigation as much as it belonged to Lena, and she had every reason to distrust language shaped for an audience. He heated the dinner she had left untouched, turned off the kitchen television, and sat where she could pass him without being blocked. When her bedroom door finally opened, he kept his hands flat on the table. Lena entered 20 minutes later. She read it without sitting down. You wrote this for the investigation? Yes. Do not use it as an apology to me. I will not. I am not ready to talk about Mom. I am not ready to make you feel better. I understand. No. You understand the sentence. That is different. Terrence nodded again. He did not improve his answer. Terrence nodded. Okay. She looked at the tablet. Can it hear me now? No. What happens if they try to turn it back on? They have to show the microphone state, sound a chime, and ask again. And if they think they have a good reason, they still have to ask. Lena left the tape in place and returned to her room. The conversation lasted less than 3 minutes. She did not ask whether he had saved the district, and he did not tell her about Willow Creek. He slept on the living room couch because the kitchen table still held the tablet, and he did not want her to think he had touched it after she left. At 6:50 the next morning, ClassCove opened to a new permission screen. Microphone access was off. The screen said no voice feature could begin without a visible icon, an audible chime, and a fresh choice from the student and parent. The final line read, "If the microphone is on, the child has to know." Lena pressed decline. Terrence handed her lunch at the door. "I am still angry," she said. "I know." She put the tablet in her bag with the blue tape still covering the microphone. They left for school.